Cheap cars are disappearing. They are endangered. If you want to go to any dealership and find a cheap car for less than 200,000 Mexican pesos or less than 10 or 20,000 US dollars, it is almost impossible. There are very few models left. Imagine you're looking for your first new car from a dealer and you have an average salary. According to an article in El Economista published on August 2nd of this year, says of the 57.1 million Mexicans who have a paid job, only 2 out of every 100 earn more than 18,483 Mexican pesos or 800 US dollars per month. This is the equivalent to approximately 5 minimum wages in the country. To one of those almost 60 million earn less than 4,000 Mexican pesos, less than 200 US dollars. And it is estimated that a Mexican household spends on average 15,800 Mexican pesos per month, which is less than 700 US dollars at today's exchange rate, on food, utilities, debts, clothes, children, school, petrol, and everything else you need. So, if you are an average Mexican and are looking to buy a new car, a small down payment is considered to be around 40,000 Mexican pesos, including insurance, opening commission, and if we ask an agency, a very affordable monthly payment would be approximately 3,800 to 4,000 Mexican pesos. It's hard to find a car with both small down payment and monthly payment. If you want a lower monthly payment, you need to make a larger down payment. If you want to put less down, the monthly payment is higher. Normally, most of us who are on a low budget, we do the following. Down payment of around 40,000 Mexican pesos or 2,800 US dollars and monthly payments of 4,000 or 180 to 200 US dollars. Now, for many people in developed countries, that is very cheap. But taking into account that the article in El Economista, which takes the data from INEGI, which is the official data in the country, the average Mexican earns monthly a salary of 10,000 to 11,000 Mexican pesos. If you take 4,000 for a monthly payment, you're only left with 6,000 pesos. So, to be able to buy one of these cars, you need at least 2 people at home with similar salaries, or for cars to remain cheap. But why are cheap cars disappearing? And whose fault is it? Is it the government or the capitalist industries that want all of our money? Or is it the bank and financiers who want to take money from customers? The answer is a lot more complicated than that. But before we answer it, let's first understand which are the cheapest cars you can buy in the country today. The cheapest car you can buy today is Fiat Uno for 185,000 Mexican pesos in its cheapest version, which is around 8,000 to 9,000 US dollars at today's exchange rate. Prices are subject to change. The second cheapest car you can buy today is Renault Kwid. It's a car that I like a lot because of the driving sensations, just like Fiat Uno. The driving sensations are very old school. Renault Kwid is now equipped with 4 airbags, containment bars on doors, and several features that make it a safer car for its size. The price of Kwid today is 197,700 Mexican pesos in its cheapest version. After that, prices start to increase and is approaching the psychological barrier of 200,000 pesos. In third place, we have Chevrolet Beat. Unfortunately, Chevrolet Beat is going to be out of the market and you won't be able to find it, so we'll erase it. In fourth place, we have the Hyundai Grand I10. The price starts at 206,500 Mexican for the cheapest version and already crosses the 200,000 psychological barrier. So today there are only 2 cars for sale below this limit, or below the 9,000 or 10,000 US dollars. While Hyundai Grand i10 is worth it, and while for many it may have a very attractive design, when the psychological limit of 200,000 is exceeded, families do not feel so confident about buying it. In fifth place is Nissan March. It's a warrior. We have several videos of it in the channel, make sure you watch them. It's a car loved by many for being very durable and reliable, with one of the largest engines in its price range and size for small cars, with a lot of space inside. However, March, on its cheapest version, costs today 227,900 Mexican pesos, which are around 11,500 $800 US. In sixth place, we have Fiat Uno. But if I go to Fiat's website to look for its price, I cannot find it. It's not available. Fiat wants me to sign up and register in their system, give them all of my personal information so they can give me a quote. Fiat, I don't agree with having to do all of those things to know the price of a vehicle, but that's just me. Besides, rumor has it, it won't be sold for so much in the country anyway. Then comes a car that was number one in sales for many years, at least in our country. We are talking about Nissan Versa V-Drive, formerly known as Versa, before the new generation arrived to the country. It's called now V-Drive, and it's what Nissan is doing to keep selling two generations of Versa at the same time. The price starts at 238,900 Mexican pesos, which is between 11 and 11,500 US dollars. Price is subject to change without notice. And something that really catches my attention of Nissan's website is that it says that you can get it from monthly payments of 3,200 Mexican pesos. What they are not telling you is that in order for you to pay those monthly payments, you need to make a down payment a little higher than average. So it's either one way or the other. Here is where it gets really tough for average Mexicans. However, to this moment, Nissan Versa V-Drive is the most spacious car you can get for the least amount of money in this segment. Above that, there are still more spacious cars that you can get for a little more money, but they are in other segments that pass the 250k limit. We have Dodge Attitude, Suzuki Ignis, Chevrolet Spark, which is no longer going to be sold in the country next year, and we can even include Mitsubishi Mirage G4 in the list, which is a small car, which is not so small anymore, and much more spacious and very safe, and I love it. Apart from being a very safe car in this 2022 version with 6 airbags and all the active safety features, traction control, stability control to avoid rollovers, etc., it's already a car whose basic version, which is not at all austere for a car in this category, is around 251,500 Mexican pesos, around 19,900 US dollars at today's exchange rate. And once we pass the 250k limit, we Mexicans have to juggle with our family finances to afford a down payment of one of these cars, either by adding your spouse bonus if you both work, or by saving for a few years, 1 or 2, for a down payment, or winning the lottery. And you also have to manage to pay the monthly payments for the vehicle, and that is just the beginning of it, fellas. It doesn't get any easier for anyone. If we take into account that the average salary in Mexico ranges from 10,000 to 11,000 Mexican pesos after the costs of housing, debts, school, food, clothes for the children who are growing every day, or any other unexpected expenses, there is little money left to pay for a car. However, brands are tight on the prices of cars, and it is due, according to what I've heard from some brands, to the fact that the profit on cheap cars is simply too small, and they have to sell a lot of them to make it affordable to produce them. Now, you didn't hear it from me, but cars sold in volume have a final profit margin for the company of less than 10%. That's right, you heard it right, less than 10%. Now, imagine you have a product, and after manufacturing it, producing it, transporting it, distributing it, and putting it in the market, pay commissions to sales agents and whatever not, you, as the creator of the product, are left with less than 10%. That's a pretty small profit margin that forces you to have to sell a lot of units. But it turns out that on the product you are selling, and I'm not justifying the brands here, because yes, brands have to improve their basic products on the market, the customer is demanding more and more every day. And let's remember, children, that demanding more, it's a good thing. What else does the customer demand? More technology, more equipment, but above all, more safety. And you, as a brand, are very happy to offer everything they ask for. But let's take a very simple example. If we take the second cheapest car, which is the one that, for its price, has the highest number of safety features, for instance, Renault Kwid with 4 airbags, active safety features, door protection bars, etc., and we add to it other safety features that wouldn't hurt to have. Like what? You are probably wondering. Like 2 more airbags. But let's take a moment here. Many people wonder how much it might cost to add 2 airbags, which must be very cheap. I mean, airbags can't be that expensive, right? right? Well, to those people I can tell you, try to buy an airbag at your local dealer so you know how much they cost. But assuming that economies of scale come into play and adding a couple of extra airbags costs an extra $200, because not only do you have to fit the airbags, but you have to lengthen the electrical harness that goes inside the vehicle. And how much could it really cost to put in 5 or 8 meters more of cable? Well, there it is. It is not the cable that costs more. What costs more is the labor. If you have a worker that's going to take 20 or 30 minutes more, or a robot that will be on for the same amount of time to put the meters of cable in the vehicle, and you will also have to add more sensors, etc., it is no longer just $200, but $300 or $400 or $500 per car. Then you have to add the cost of the airbag, the cable, the sensors, the additional computer to process this information, the alert lights that light up on the display, the buttons on the dashboard to activate and deactivate the systems. And if you want to make the car safer, you have to put high-strength steel, LED lights, or the additional brake pump for stability control with separate braking lines. And this is how costs rise and continue to rise, and how family economies are affected. If on top of that we add a bigger screen, electric AC, USB ports, or whatever you want, costs go up even if economies of scale come into play, and the profit margin is still around 10% or less. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that if you have a cake recipe that needs 4 eggs but you add 8, you will have to absorb the cost of those 8 eggs, and you're going to make less money. So even if you break even and you only earn 10 pesos out of each 100 pesos cake, then the customer is the one who's going to end up paying for the 8-egg cake. And that's how car prices start to rise. But it's not a bad thing that prices go up in exchange for safety. And I wouldn't be so quick to criticize brands. I would rather ask why the government doesn't rise the minimum wages, because if the minimum wages went up, you could afford a safer and better equipped car. So whose problem is it? Of the brands that rise the price of cars, or of the government that doesn't rise minimum wages? That's a question worth coming back to later. But first we have to take into account the second factor, which does have to do with the brands. The market trend nowadays is towards SUVs or vans, or however you call them in your country. Although many people say that SUVs are just the platforms of compact saloon car with a higher suspension to make them look like vans, that's true in some brands, but not all of them. And the other thing that is also true is that people are willing to pay a lot more money for an SUV than for a compact saloon, even though they share the same platform, the same equipment, and the same engine. There is a psychological issue in people's head that when the vehicle has 3 inches more suspension and looks a bit rougher, people pay more money, and the manufacturers know it so much that the profit margin of SUVs is around 25 to 45%. This doesn't mean that Kia Seltos or Volkswagen Taos have a margin of 45%. The biggest profit margins are fortunately found in premium vehicles. For instance, if you buy a BMW or a Mercedes SUV, chances are that the profit margin of the premium brand is close to 40% or 50%. Just so you know, and think about whether you are overpaying. So, you're probably thinking this is the brand's fault because they know the consumer is willing to pay more. Or is it the consumer's fault because they are eager to satisfy the desire of a car that looks bigger and are willing to take on more debt? I can't say that for sure because there are other factors that come into play. Only those who have lived thousands of years like Eternas could have an answer to this question. It is then the problem of the manufacturers for wanting to make more money and making more SUVs to replace the saloons? Or is it the consumer's problem that we demand more safety and equipment in cars, and therefore manufacturers have to spend more money and we end up paying more expensive prices? Or is it the government's problem for not raising minimum wages and keeping the people oppressed, earning a pittance and suffering a lot? To my eyes, it is a mixture of conditions that make a perfect storm. If we add this to the fact that environmental issues are more rigorous, especially for smaller cars, but they are a bit more flexible worldwide for cars with larger engines, then we can see that everything is coming together to make it the brand's interest, at least for now, to make bigger and more expensive cars. I ask myself, what is going to happen when all the new cars in the market and in the country are no longer affordable for the average Mexican family? Then owning a car will be a luxury and people with an average salary will only be able to access the pre-owned vehicles. But then the brands will start to lose consumer loyalty because people are going to start buying their cars from a dealer at an older age. I bought my first dealership car when I was 20 years old, and back then it cost me around 80,000 Mexican pesos. The reality is that those days are long gone for most people, and families are now starting to buy their first new car in their late 20s or early 30s. This will lead to a price war in the pre-owned market and a host for new consumer attraction and product marketing techniques. In the long term, I think most likely buying a car as such will disappear. Families are more likely to subscribe to any ride-sharing services like Uber or Didi, but without human drivers, and where you will be entitled to a certain amount of trips or kilometers per month for a subscription fee. We are still a long way from that, but I would like to know what you think is going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years in the automotive industry. Leave your comments below. These are the reasons why I think cheap cars are disappearing. They call me Gonzalo Magaña. See you next video.